And so the first part of the story that I've just told you is this idea of a casual suit and that there's a space in the market for that.
Yeah.
The second part was after we started looking into the fashion industry, and fast fashion is one of those things that we all know is bad. Like, I don't think there's anyone out here that would tell you that fast fashion is a good thing. So we started looking into the industry in a bit more detail. You look at some of the stats that come out and you realise quickly how bad fast fashion has got. So, I mean, we're now at a point where 6 in 10 items of clothing that are made end up in landfill within a year. They also estimate by 2050, 25% of the world's carbon emissions will be taken up by the fashion industry. So that's second only to oil. So it's monumental. If you can think of like all the other industries there are, construction, shipping, fashion beats all of them from a carbon emissions perspective. And it's mental. So
that's pretty insane.
It's crazy. So we're in this really dire state of the world, and fashion's a big driver of that.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is exactly what you said just earlier, that brands don't know what's going to work. So they go through all of these product development costs. They'll create a variety of styles, a variety of sizes, but ultimately they're guessing, because you can do your market research, but fashion doesn't quite work as that. You can't be overly statistically driven because it's subjective at the end of the day. So they'll go and create loads and loads and loads of stuff, and if it doesn't sell, they'll discount it. If that doesn't sell, it goes straight to landfill. So you've got this huge issue. So we tried to work out how we could have an impact on that problem and what the biggest impact we could have was. And we dialed it down to this attempt to change the culture behind how we consume fashion, and to give over this idea that good things come to people that wait, good things come to those that wait.
Yeah.
Patience is a virtue, slow fashion down a bit. And how that works for us is we make everything to order. So we only have to make a really finite number of garments as it works at the moment, because we've got a shop. We have pretty much one in every size and colour, but not quite. There's some sizes that we know aren't going to be massively popular, so we'll make less of them.
Yeah.
But we've got 4 different colours, men and women, and then a variety of sizes. But that's it. We don't have any other stock other than that. So you'll come in, you'll try on a suit, you'll try and find your colour. We'll then take your order, collate those together, and then go and get it made. So the idea is that you only make exactly what you need.
Yeah.
So back to your original question, that takes away a lot of that startup cost, because we're not having to create loads of stock and wait and see if it sells. We just do the bare minimum.
And then back to the fashion industry. So you said broken is the word that you use, and I guess like that makes a ton of sense. You basically create what people are actually demanding, so that there isn't that waste, because if it doesn't sell. So I guess like, do you see the fashion industry going more into that direction of, I guess, made to order instead of it's just there?
I do, massively. I think it has to go in that direction. I think it's not going to really be a choice, because there are finite resources, and we're already at a point where we can see the end of when that will run out. And don't get me wrong, there will always be innovation into new materials.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a few things. We're going to get to this point. People won't stop consuming. It's too ingrained in our culture, or that's going to take a very, very long time. So people will have to start consuming better. And then on the flip side, people will have to start to look after their clothes better, reuse, recycle, repair, resell. And that's starting to happen massively. There's a huge resurgence in reselling of clothes, particularly reusing, rental markets. But for the people that do still consume, because that is going to be the vast majority of the industry, can we make things better? How do we make things better? We have to make things better before we run out of resources.
Is that where the name Batch London came from?
Yeah.
I guess like you create them in batches.
You create them in small batches.
Yeah, that's interesting. When it comes to actually, so you had the idea, you started the business, but I guess like when it actually came to creating the clothing, creating the designs, you don't come from a fashion background yourself, right? Like
no.
you come from a drinks background. So it's like, how was it? It must have been a completely new world to you. Massively,
and I think that kind of works in your advantage in many ways. But I mean, both me and my co-founder have always had an interest in fashion.
Yeah.
And we had a pretty clear idea in our heads of what we wanted to create here and how we wanted it to look. and then we brought in freelancers from various realms who knew much more about the fashion industry than we did. And actually, I've always, and still am, shocked as to how broken apart the fashion industry is. So when you go to create a garment, you have an idea, you then will create a fashion design for that. Mm-hmm. So draw it on paper, let's say. There's a different person that does that. Then there's another person that cuts the patterns out. Yeah. So creates the actual garment. Then there's another person that grades it, so takes it from one size to multiple sizes. There's another person that then samples it, and then goes back through the cycle again, so you get to the perfect garment. And then there's someone else that manufactures it. And I've just never really been able to get my head around that, why each of those sections is broken apart to a different person, and why nobody wants to do all of them at once. It's kind of interesting. But I think it's because it's so specialised.
I've never thought about it. Like, I've never thought about it like that, but it makes sense. I guess it's like all those different things are different problems and different specialties.
No one's
I guess.
consolidated.
Yeah. So what's the issue with that? Like, why is that an issue?
It's not really an issue, just more of an observation. It's the only reason it's an issue is because it's pretty inefficient. So you've got to go through so many stages, and each one costs, and each one you have to explain between one person to the other. So the issue is that you can end up with a bit of Chinese whispers, and your original idea comes up very different to what you'd imagined it to, because everyone's had their little input along the chain. That's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's great because each person can improve it as you go along. But yeah, it's just inefficient.
How did you know like who to turn to? Because it was a new industry, right? Like, obviously you can being a consumer of clothing and being a producer of clothing is a completely different thing. Like, you can have an interest, but when it actually comes to producing it and designing it and all those different stages that you said, who do you go to find out all this information? Who do you go to actually like get it done?
Google. It's such a stupid answer, but genuinely throughout the whole process of this business, we found all of our freelancers, production partners from Google, and spent a lot of time looking into it and researching. And for us, we did it quite a lot based on personality and like, did we like the people that we were talking to when we met them, and the fashion designers that we brought in and the pattern cutters, and do we get along with them from a cultural perspective? And then, what else have they done? Who else have they worked for? Do they have a similar sort of line of thinking as to what you're trying to create?
And did you just work with people within UK and Europe, or did you work like abroad? Like, how did it work?
So we designed everything in the UK. Then up until we sampled in the UK as well. Up until this point, we've been getting all of our suits manufactured in Portugal. So we had a great partner out there. We actually had 2 partners to begin with. So actually, sorry, rewind a sec. We found a directory online for 700 different suit manufacturers in Portugal. We then somehow managed to whittle it down to 2. Went to visit both of them. One we really liked, the other one we really didn't like. So we went with the one we liked, and they were an amazing partner. But quite exciting news, we've just moved manufacture back to the UK. And actually cool. To London. So Batch London's now designed and produced in London, which is really cool because there's not many brands that can say that.
No, I've never met any brands that have said that actually. Apart from the ones like on Savile Row, but like that's different.
Yeah, even they don't get their suits made in London.
Oh really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Lots of them send them out to Portugal, so they'll do the sizing.
Yeah.
And then cut the patterns, and then they'll go and create them in Portugal and send them back.
That's really interesting.
In Italy.
But like for you guys, like, is it not a really significant cost to be able to do that?
It was actually less than we were expecting it to be. Yes, it's an increase in cost, but by the time you've gone through all the steps, you've taken out the import, so you also have to ship them back. There's fees involved in that as well.
Yeah, customs.
Until we get to really, really big volumes, and we're producing lots in each batch, it's cheaper to do. Well, it's not that much more expensive to do it in the UK.